Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. Pakistan has reaffirmed its commitment to support the Kashmiri people in their struggle for right to self-determination. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Pakistan will not let anyone take away Kashmir from the Kashmiris and their struggle is just, sacred and non-negotiable. Qureshi said Islamabad expects United States President Joe Biden to address India's gross rights violations in the occupied valley. Pakistan has started nationwide vaccination drive against COVID-19 with the first jab administered to frontline health workers. The Health Ministry says 56 people have died and nearly 1,400 people tested positive overnight. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has suspended entry to the kingdom from 20 countries to help curb the spread of the virus. Globally, the virus has claimed 2.25 million lives and infected over 103.8 million people so far. The United States says it will consider rejoining the 2015 nuclear deal only after Iran makes the first move. In a briefing, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said if Iran comes back into full compliance with its obligations under the deal, Washington would do the same. Earlier, Iran's foreign minister proposed synchronized moves by Tehran and Washington to return to the deal. Myanmar's National League for Democracy party says the military has raided several of its offices and seized documents and computers. Meanwhile, staff at 70 hospitals in 30 towns across the country have stopped work to protest the military coup. In another development, China and Russia have blocked United Nations Security Council's condemnation of the military coup in Myanmar. In Russia, police have detained nearly 1,400 people during protests in support of jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The Kremlin critics' team called for the protests after he was jailed for 3.5 years for violating the conditions of a sentence. He was arrested 2 weeks ago on his return to Russia for the first time since being poisoned last year. And in football, Manchester United have thrashed 9-man Southampton 9-0, making the Saints the third team to lose a Premier League contest by this margin. With this dominating win, United are 11th on second place with leaders Manchester City on 44 points. These were the top stories. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. We start from Pakistan, which has reaffirmed its commitment to support the Kashmiri people in their struggle for right to self-determination. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said this while addressing a seminar in Islamabad.
Qureshi said Pakistan will not let anyone take away Kashmir from the Kashmiris and their struggle is just, sacred and non-negotiable. He said Islamabad expects United States President Joe Biden to address India's gross rights violations in the occupied valley. The foreign minister expressed the confidence that the Kashmiri spirit will ultimately triumph.
You would recall that I put together a delegation of different political parties, and we went to the House of Commons to highlight the plight of Kashmiris. We got a lot of support from the all-parliamentary group on Kashmir, in the House of Commons. Members of Parliament from different political parties, Tories, Labour, Liberal Democrats, they were all there, from House of Lords and Commons, they were there, and they highlighted what we've been saying. In fact, they endorsed a lot of things that Pakistan was highlighting.
Addressing the seminar, Special Assistant on National Security Division Moeed Yusuf said Pakistan stands for peace. He said the world should push India for a sincere dialogue with Pakistan for the resolution of the outstanding Kashmir dispute.
Also, Pakistan has kicked off its COVID-19 vaccination drive with the first jab delivered to frontline health workers. Federal Minister for Planning Asad Umar formally initiated the national immunization drive in a ceremony in Islamabad. The National COVID-19 Command and Operations Centre says the first tranche of vaccines has reached all federating units. Special Assistant to Prime Minister on Health, Dr. Faisal Sultan, says getting vaccinated will be voluntary. Meanwhile, Pakistan has recorded another 56 deaths overnight, pushing the toll to 11,802 deaths. Health officials reported nearly 1,400 infections in the last 24 hours. They say currently there are more than 33,000 active cases in the country out of 549,000 people infected so far, while 504,000 people have recovered. Now, Saudi Arabia has suspended entry to the kingdom from 20 countries to help curb the spread of the virus. Saudi state media says diplomats, Saudi citizens, medical practitioners and their families are exempted from the ban. The kingdom has reported over 6,000 deaths with more than 368,000 infections. Meanwhile, vaccine rollouts are facing roadblocks and challenges. World Health Organization chief has also warned the vaccine nationalism currently pitting countries against each other is harmful to all. The WHO team has visited a major virus research laboratory in China's city of Wuhan, seeking clues to the origins of the COVID-19. While globally the virus has claimed 2.25 million lives and infected over 103.8 million people so far. Moving on now, Democrats are taking steps to push through President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan without Republican support. The Senate voted along party lines, with Democrats edging out Republicans 50 to 49. This opens a debate on the fiscal 2021 budget resolution with coronavirus aid spending instructions. Using this strategy unlocks a legislative tool needed for Democrats to enact Biden's package in the face of Republican opposition. Talking to reporters, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Biden termed the Republican proposal for a $618 billion package inadequate. Earlier, Biden met 10 Republican senators to discuss the possibility of a scaled-back economic rescue plan. Now, Pakistan says turning back from the ongoing Afghan peace process would be a tragedy. Islamabad's envoy to the United Nations says substantial progress has been made towards a political solution to the country's conflict. At a UN briefing on Afghanistan, Munir Akram said a political solution is the only path to peace. He said Pakistan believes in broad-based peace talks involving the full spectrum of Afghanistan's political landscape. The envoy said Al-Qaeda, ISIS and other international terrorist groups should not use Afghan territory against any country. He urged all the parties to Afghan conflict to step up against violence and seize the historic opportunity of a political settlement. Meanwhile, the United States says it will consider rejoining the 2015 nuclear deal only after Iran makes the first move. The State Department says if Iran comes back into full compliance with its obligations under the deal, Washington would do the same. A department spokesperson said the United States would then use that as a platform to build a longer deal that also addresses other areas of concern. In a briefing, Ned Price said Washington will have to consider some steps before entertaining Tehran's proposal over the nuclear deal. Earlier, Iran's foreign minister proposed synchronized moves by Tehran and Washington to return to the deal. Javad Zarif said European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell could play the role of the coordinator for the Joint Commission of the deal. Meanwhile, Myanmar's National League for Democracy party says the military has raided several of its offices and seized documents and computers. The party has urged the coup leaders to stop such unlawful acts. Meanwhile, the public dissent against the coup in Myanmar is growing. Staff at 70 hospitals in 30 towns across the country have stopped to work to protest the military coup. Meanwhile, China and Russia have blocked United Nations Security Council's condemnation of the military coup in Myanmar. The UNSC met on Tuesday but failed to agree on a joint statement after Beijing and Moscow did not support the move. The blockage comes amid China's warnings that international pressure will only make things worse in Myanmar. Now in Russia, police have detained nearly 1,400 people during protests in support of jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The Kremlin critics team called for the protests after he was jailed for 3.5 years for violating the conditions of a sentence. The United States, Britain, Germany and European Union urged Moscow to immediately free Navalny. He was arrested 2 weeks ago on his return to Russia for the first time since being poisoned last year. Now, in the United States, the legal team of former President Donald Trump has challenged the Senate's authority to try him as a private citizen on an impeachment charge. Trump's lawyers made the objections as both sides filed briefs with the Senate a week before the trial. Trump's defense team said the chamber also lacked jurisdiction to prevent him from holding office again. The former president denied the charge of incitement of insurrection through his lawyers and called the trial unconstitutional. Meanwhile, Democrat impeachment managers said Trump should be convicted and barred from holding public office in the future. In an 80-page brief, they said Trump pointed a mob of supporters like a loaded cannon at the U.S. Capitol. Now, U.S. President Joe Biden has signed 3 executive orders for a fairer, orderly and humane immigration system. They seek to reunite migrant families split up by existing policies and review the Trump-era migration agenda. One of the orders will set up a task force to reunite migrant families separated at the U.S.-Mexico border between 2017 and 18. The second and third orders seek a review of Trump's immigration policies that curtailed asylum, slowed legal immigration and cancelled funding to foreign countries. Speaking at the White House, Biden said he was not making new laws, but eliminating the bad policies.
I want to make it clear, there's a lot of talk, with good reason, about the number of executive orders that I have signed. I'm not making new law. I'm eliminating bad policy. What I'm doing is taking on the issues that 99% of them, that the last president of the United States, issued executive orders I thought were very counterproductive to our security, counterproductive to who we are as a country, particularly in the area of immigration. This is about how America is safer, stronger, more prosperous when we have a fair, orderly, and humane legal immigration system. And with the first action today, we're going to work to undo the moral and national shame of the previous administration that literally, not figuratively, ripped children from the arms of their families, their mothers and fathers at the border, and with no plan, none whatsoever, to reunify the children who are still in custody and their parents. The second action addresses the root causes of our migration to our southern border. And the third action, the third order I'm going to be signing, orders a full review of the previous administration's harmful and counterproductive immigration.
Now moving to Somalia, where the Al-Shabaab militants have killed 8 people, including soldiers in the Lower Shabelle region. A regional police official says several others were injured as terrorists ambushed military personnel in the vicinity of Dunka. In a statement, the official said the military personnel were targeted while escorting vehicles carrying goods to the capital. Al-Shabaab claimed the responsibility of the attack. The militants also claimed to attack African Union mission in Somalia's region of Bakol, killing at least 4 soldiers. Meanwhile, Somalian security forces have shot dead 3 Al-Shabaab terrorists in central city of Dusa Mareb. The city's mayor said the security forces have arrested 2 terrorists and recovered heavy machine guns and other weapons. More news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now moving on with the news stories. Amazon says its founder Jeff Bezos will step down as the chief executive officer and become the executive chairman. The company says Bezos will transition to the role of executive chair in the third quarter of this year. Amazon Web Services chief executive Andy Jassy will take over as CEO of the company. In a memo to employees, Bezos said as executive chair he will stay engaged in important Amazon initiatives. Bezos added he will have the time and energy needed to focus on other passions. The announcement comes after the company reported quarterly sales above $100 billion for the first time. Amazon's net sales rose to over $125 billion, beating analyst expectations of $119.7 billion. Now, at least 2 people have died after heavy rains and flash floods struck Turkey's Aegean coastal province of Izmir. The 2 victims were trapped inside a vehicle that was swept away by rising water. Izmir's governor said the region was hit by more rain in 10 hours than the average total for February. A deputy interior minister said the showers caused 19 streams to overflow, resulting in flooding. The officials say around 50 houses and workplaces as well as 40 vehicles were damaged. The downpour is expected to continue until Wednesday in Izmir and nearby Aden province. In October, Izmir was struck by a powerful earthquake that toppled buildings, killing over 100 people. Now in Australia, thousands of people have fled to evacuation centres as bushfire grows on the outskirts of the provincial capital Perth. This comes as 2 million residents of Western Australia are under a 5-day coronavirus lockdown until Friday. Authorities told residents of suburb Bullsbrook to ignore a stay-home order and leave immediately as the hot weather picked up. The Western States Premier Mark McGowan said the region is facing an unprecedented situation. Authorities said the fire has destroyed 71 homes and a swathe of more than 9,000 hectares. Officials say 6 firefighters have had minor injuries. So far, no fatalities have been reported, while the cause of the fires is still unknown. A SpaceX prototype rocket exploded on landing during a high-altitude experimental launch from Boca Chica, Texas. The Starship SN9 blew up its final descent like the SN8 destroyed before it. It was not immediately clear what went wrong. The Federal Aviation Administration said it will oversee an investigation into the crash landing. The rocket was a prototype for the heavy lift rocket being developed by billionaire Elon Musk's private company. It plans to carry humans and 100 tons of cargo on future missions to the Moon and Mars. Now, more than 8,000 people from Asia, the Middle East and North Africa remain in Bosnia after the EU country sealed their borders due to the coronavirus pandemic. Many live in tents in the woods or houses and factories damaged in the Bosnian War of the 1990s. Details in this report.
Among thousands of migrants stuck in northern Bosnia, children in one family are waiting out the bitter winter and missing their mother. Iraqi citizen Farhan Hazam and his 3 children were separated from his wife and another child while trying to cross into European Union member Croatia. Police turned Hazam and his children back to Bosnia, while his wife and another child made it across and then on to Germany. The family are sheltering in a house owned by Bosnians living abroad who agreed to let the family stay there with the help of a local charity.
40. Go and come back, go and come back. 40 game. I know it's 1 game, go, 2 game, go Slovenia and come back. As I know, it's police say, sorry, no, can't help you.
Zahida Bihorak Odobashik, a school teacher and activist, visits the Hazam family with supplies as well as other migrants living in a snowbound tent camp.
Those who try to help these people are condemned and mistreated. Very often, they are victims of verbal and physical violence. I have been the victim of a physical attack by individuals, members of certain Facebook groups, calling for persecution and violence against these migrants and those who help them.
The EU has repeatedly called on Bosnian authorities to provide accommodation to at least 1,000 people sleeping rough during the winter. Since early 2018, the bloc has provided more than 88 million euros to help Bosnia manage the migrant crisis.
Now, West Bank has been home to Israeli military bases and checkpoints that restrict Palestinian movement. In the city of Nebulas, a treehouse cafe is open to give people an opportunity to immerse in the nature. Let's find out in this report.
A cafe in the occupied West Bank has a treehouse exterior with walls designed to resemble branches. Use of wood branches and soft earthy tones, the cafe provides nature-like surroundings. This Palestinian cafe hopes to surround its customers with the feel of nature as tourism has become limited by the pandemic and Israeli restrictions. The cafe is famous for its tasty coffee and traditional Middle Eastern cuisine.
This place is very nice. When I enter it, I remember the old days. They say Nablus is Little Damascus. So when they opened this place, I really felt like it is Little Damascus here. Also, a lot of people visit the old city in Nablus, and when they will see this place, they will be more attracted to the area, and that will encourage tourism in Palestine.
The Treehouse Cafe was built in 2020 as the world's economy took a dive due to COVID-19 outbreak.
We Palestinian residents, because of the occupation, cannot go to many places. So when there is such a place like this, designed like this, it gives the feeling of being in nature, which is nice. Whoever cannot reach nature outside, they can come here as an alternative.
The pandemic and prolonged lockdowns in the West Bank have led to severe economic fallout. The owner of the cafe, Ahmed Akub, says the cafe has been open to attract tourists to the city.
Now, robotics company Boston Dynamics has unveiled an expanded product line, including a new version of its robot called Spot. After the addition of an arm, dog-like Spot can find your slippers all by itself and can also bring them to you. Let's find out more about Spot in this report.
Boston Dynamics is teaching its robot dog Spot new tricks. The four-legged Spot can perform autonomous remote inspections and data collection. The robot went on sale last June, starting at $74,500. The company says there are over 400 Spots out in the world, including on a factory floor at Ford and helping with oil rig inspection for BP. Spot comes with self-charging capabilities and a dock. The company says the new arm-like protrusion with a gripper has been in development for some time and was top of the wish list for many clients.
Where we say, that's a thing I want you to grab, go grab it. And the robot does everything else. It will figure out a way to get there. It'll figure out a way to reach out, grab the object, and it'll figure out how to pull it back at the velocity that you've told it to.
While robotics was on the rise before the pandemic, the seismic changes in the workplace and home lives are accelerating trends towards a viable robot workforce. Most of the shift will likely be to software-based solutions. A consulting firm, McKinsey, recently surveyed 800 executives. It found that 70% of companies have accelerated the adoption of automation and artificial intelligence.
Suddenly, the number of spaces where our technology, the key story of taking a person out of a dangerous environment has expanded pretty tremendously over the last year. Now, I think that's probably a short-term blip where as people start getting back to work and the workspaces become safer, I think people will reevaluate the need of that type of automation in their space.
The Spot arm was teased in a jaw-dropping video showing it dancing alongside other Boston Dynamic robots. The YouTube video has clocked up nearly 29 million views since its release on 29th of December.
Now, European stocks are trading higher as positive market sentiment continues amid a busy week of earnings report. Italy's FTSE MIB has jumped over 2% to lead the gains. European stock 600 and Frankfurt's DAX have added over 0.5% each. The CAC 40 in Paris and London's FTSE 100 have also edged up marginally. Earlier, all major Asian bourses also traded higher. And now let's have a look at the weather updates. that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.